Okay, morning everybody. Welcome to today's session and thanks for attending. I know everyone's very busy at the moment, so we appreciate it. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the Whadjuk Budja that we are meeting on here today and honour the elders past, present and emerging. I mean, if you could just do the slides for me, thanks. Okay, so hi, I'm Kingsley McGarrigle. I'm the State General Manager for Data3 here in Perth. And today we have what we hope is an informative session where we'll cover two main topics. Firstly, an update from the Office of Digital Government on the progress being made across the sector's cybersecurity strategy, delivered by somebody I know you all know well. On my left here, Mr. Peter Bullis, the CISO. And secondly, we're going to run through Project Fortify. This is a unique initiative which Data3 are partnering with the Department of Finance and the Office of Digital Government on. A little bit of housekeeping. There will be an opportunity for a live Q&A post session. This will take place in a separate Teams meeting that will be sent as a link within the chat of this particular live event. So we encourage you to jump into that later. Just a little bit on Project Fortify. This has been developed on the back of a unique innovation fund that was established as part of Data3's winning tender response for the provision of the Microsoft licensing construct to WA government, which I know you're all familiar with. It's unique because we're partnering as a whole sector here to reinvest back into government. And this is really just to help drive digital transformation through the adoption of the Microsoft technologies. So through engagements we've had with the Office of Digital Government and specifically Peter's team, it became obvious to Data3 that the Digital Innovation Fund could become a key enabler for Microsoft security technologies that were already established in the license. And therefore, we think quickly improving the cybersecurity posture of the government. So that Data3, we're very proud and excited today to bring Project Fortify to the sector. We hope you see today the impact this could have on the sector in terms of improving the posture of government as well as accelerating digital transformation. We feel you've got a unique opportunity to access expertise, resources and funding, which we'll talk to later. And I'd encourage you to engage with us early to take advantage of this. So presenting today from Data3, we'll have Amin. Amin is our lead security specialist in Western Australia, as well as Ian Christie. Ian is the territory manager for Business Aspect in Western Australia. Business Aspect is a wholly owned consulting subsidiary of Data3. So without further ado, I think I'll hand over now to Peter. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Kingsley, and again, thank you everyone and appreciate your time to listen to the presentation today. As Kingsley covered, really about Data3's Project Fortify, which really is a great opportunity to improve your cybersecurity maturity and increase the sector's resilience against cyber threats, which is really what we want to achieve. So there are three key areas which I'll go through them shortly. Just before I do that, this slide here, I guess, just represents our strategic approach to cybersecurity, which uses the NIST framework, which just gives us some principles and some scaffolding, which most of the controls we want to address fall under this under these areas. Excuse me. The main objective of digital government, and I guess the main strategy, is to prevent any data loss from the sector and ensure that there's no disruption to the services that we provide. And really, to enable this, we just need better visibility over the threats, controls and vulnerabilities across the sector, and establish a strong incident response capability. So that's from a strategic perspective. And many of you, if not all of you online, would understand this from the recent draft cybersecurity policy that's been circulated and seeking your consultation. This area that is on importance, of course, and again, you would be more than familiar with, are the essential 8 controls. We know these in the sector as the SEC 5 controls. The agencies have been reporting on the implementation and maturity of these controls for the last 2 years. They've been coming through to Office of Digital Government. We've been tabling a report to Cabinet. And although there's been some good progress, it's really not at the pace that we would like to see. So part of Project Fortify is to assist with the acceleration and uptake of these technical controls. And of course, as Kingsley sort of mentioned, the way to do that is providing, I guess, the technical expertise which is aligned to DGov strategic objectives and strategies. The second area that is of interest and a key focus for Office of Digital Government is the SIEM and SOC Acceleration. So many agencies know that through the EA arrangement, we have access to Microsoft Sentinel, and many agencies didn't have a SIEM in place at all. Some of you are starting to implement, some of you have different SIEM arrangements, which is perfectly fine. And this project will help understand how we stand up, configure, optimize the configuration of a SIEM to make sure that what comes through to DGov is optimal for us to monitor your network. Most of us recognise as soon as we turn on a SIEM, there is an incredible amount of information that comes through, and distilling that to what's important and what we need to be aware of can be quite difficult. So we do require support in understanding how to configure our SIEMs to enable that. The expertise that Data3 can provide, they're fully aware of the data connectors that we would require to enable us to move to a service level arrangement. So we have about 14 agencies at the moment that have enrolled into our Security Operations Centre. However, to move on to service level arrangements, and we have 3 of them, you need to ensure that you have particular data connectors enabled, because we want to make sure we get quality information to be able to provide, I guess, a quality service. And the main objective here is Office of Digital Government does not want to run your Security Operations Centre. We want to enable agencies to run their own security operations, and that's the main objective here. And of course, to provide government with some visibility about what's going on across the sector. And the last area I think is everyone's favourite, talking about legacy systems. So most of us do have legacy systems, large or small, and of various types. That's been an inhibitor to progressing with our maturity, particularly with patching. And although Office of Digital Government understands that you may have compensating controls around legacy systems, and to compensate for some of those weaknesses, at some point we still have to address this legacy system problem. And so to do that, Data3 will be able to provide, I guess, a risk-based, standardised approach that we can all take, rather than we all try to solve the same problem in a different way. And of course, this largely becomes and can become a digital transformation project, not only to enable better security, but possibly to refine your business processes and provide better services and better digital outcomes also. So that's the 3 key areas that we're going to focus on. So in the last slide that I'll talk to, as Kingsley mentioned, we have an arrangement between Data3 and Finance that generates a fund, and currently that's sitting at $1.8 billion. So that fund, it was decided with the Department of Finance through their customer reference group on how to spend that money. So through consultation with the CRG and key stakeholders, it was decided that the best way to spend that money would be with these cybersecurity initiatives that we all have before us to undertake. So as I said, really good opportunity for us to seize and ensure, particularly for those agencies that have very limited, some of you, no capacity or capability to initiate or accelerate your cybersecurity initiatives. this is really for you. This is your opportunity to come forward and say, yes, we do need to do something about our cybersecurity. We don't have a lot of funding. We don't have expertise. We require help. I would be encouraging you to come forward as soon as possible to get your slice of the action. It's something that we're going to be required to do and report on a regular basis. So, as I said, good opportunity. So I'll hand over to Amin.
Thanks, Peter. Welcome everybody. Good morning. Some of you might have will have seen some of like the aspects of Project Fortify, but today we're just going to cover the three different streams a little bit deeper level, just for everybody's understanding of what we're trying to achieve here. So as far as DGov Data 3 initiatives concerned, is like the vision of Project Fortify is to set up like a project that is that has like a defined time frame with very clear objectives, and will be supported by dedicated resources and backed by funding through the Innovation Fund to achieve like top priority security goals that DGov are trying to achieve here. The mission that we are on is to provide a sector-wide and, as Peter previously said, standardized and evidence-based baseline of the cybersecurity posture across the state government sector. And that will help digital transformation moving forward, will help the sector more broadly to make decisions based on solid evidence-based information to transform and address security requirements. So the three different streams that Fortify covers are the Essential 8 Mil 1 compliance. You all would be familiar with the SIG 5 and Essential 8, obviously. But the issue that we're trying to solve here is pretty much the lack of consistency in the reporting on the Essential 8 compliance. So what we're doing, what we're trying to do across these three streams is to build like 6, 12, probably 18 months if suitable, time frame for the project to run to support as many agencies as possible through this Digital Innovation Fund. And all those services will be delivered locally. A number of the agencies would be familiar with some of our professional services teams across the state. I guess by the end of the month, we will have delivered around 25 to 30 projects, enabling the adoption of more modern security controls, if you like, provided under the Microsoft E5 security agreement. So just a quick comparison between the before and after. This is the way we're looking at it. The problems that we're trying to solve are obviously in the to the left-hand side of the screen, and that's mainly from a visibility perspective, which is really key for DGov, is the lack of reporting consistency. And obviously there is very objective reasons for that and why this is the case. Yeah, a lot of self-reporting going on, I guess, for lack of resources potentially, or lack of funding, or lack of skills. So the way we're trying to solve that is by providing the sector with consistent and reliable reporting that is consistent across the sector, and to reflect the exposure levels across the state government agencies. And obviously all that visibility will be aggregated in a way that is more meaningful for more strategic planning moving forward. And we're solving the shortage of skilled resources, or the time limitation that these skilled resources that may be available, but they don't have enough time in a day, by providing assistance through expert professional services teams, all delivered locally. And we're solving the limited funding problem by supporting this initiative through the Innovation Fund. So the three key challenges really, the inconsistency in reporting, the shortage of skills, and the limited funding are all pretty much, we'd like to think, solved through Project Fortify. The second stream under Project Fortify first stream, that is, the Essential 8 Mil 1 compliance. similar to everything that we discussed earlier. So when the agencies are trying to do the best they can, and then feeding that information into DGov, that information, you'd understand, is not consistent, is based on different understanding of the framework, probably different levels of visibility across the agency itself as well. So what we'll be doing is we'll be applying a standardized approach to all agencies that will use these services to provide that aggregated view in terms of MIL1 compliance. And from there, obviously, remediation recommendations will be provided, and where possible, assistance to remediate certain shortcomings will be offered as well under the set scope of work. The second stream is the SOC Acceleration stream, and again, all around visibility and the efficiency of the Security Operations Center of DGov. So our approach will ensure that not only you have you actually using what's currently available to you under the Microsoft agreement, but also that SIEM that you're implementing is actually in accordance to DGov's configuration and requirements guide that you'd be familiar with. So this will allow DGov to investigate more broadly across the sector in the case of if there's this particular incident that they'd like to see the spread of or the expanse of, that will enable DGov to do that because we have all the connectors in place from the agencies that wish to use the service, obviously, and the architecture are all consistent with the preset requirements. And also, I'd like to think about this not only as a point in time value you're extracting here from the contract, but moving forward when DGov issues the next iteration of the configuration and requirements guide, v2.0, let's say, we'll be able to apply these updates in a very light touch manner through automation and DevOps approach that we're taking here, to ensure that the uplift is not too onerous or would take too long to implement. So this is something that we'd like to think the sector can take advantage of longer term, make sure that their teams, their security operations team are as efficient as they can, and they don't need to waste project time on making changes to their SIEM platforms, or making any too many changes to the connector setup into DGov SOC. The last stream is the legacy systems risk assessment, and to Peter's point earlier, all agencies know that there's a lot of too many moving parts, too many legacy systems, and that legacy system can be as simple as a Windows 7 server, for instance, or Windows 7 machines, or unsupported softwares, or could also be systems that have been supplied by vendors that no longer exist. And that means that there is no continuous development cycle of certain applications or certain systems, and those systems can very well be providing services to the citizens of Western Australia. And those services can be very critical to also the safety of Western Australians. So understanding the level of exposure from legacy systems is we'd like to think very crucial to modernizing those systems, to setting out plans to address the security shortcomings in those systems, as well as modernizing moving forward and improving the service, improving making sure that the agencies are future-proof, basically. On that note, I'm going to hand over to Ian Christie, who will talk about our methodology there.
Thanks, Amit. Our approach to addressing these issues that you can see on the screen, so that's making sure you get your agency level view of the vulnerabilities within your applications, and then rolling those up to an aggregated view at the whole of government level, is to develop a business information model. And put simply, the business information model tracks the information flows inwards, outwards through capabilities, and within those capabilities we capture information around the applications and the security vulnerabilities within. So if we go to the next slide, the way that we approach the business information model and its development is we come into the organisation and we ask 4 key questions. We go to the capability owners and we ask the first question being, what is the information that you require to deliver the service to the organisation that you deliver? Second key question is, what is the information that you produce? So where does it go, who's it distributed to, and what value has been added to it? And what we're doing through those 2 questions is we're starting to attach attributes to each of those information flows, which then form part of the model. Then we dig deeper into the capability itself as we're talking to the capability owner, and we ask questions around the applications themselves. What are the data stores? What are the information and data stores? What are the applications? And it's at this stage where we're also attaching attributes that are attached to the applications. And one of those attributes that we're attaching is around security vulnerabilities. And that's where we're starting to use some of that information that's going to surface up to the whole of agency level. And then the last question that we ask is around the context with which the service is delivered by the capability owner. And context, put simply, means you could be in IT, but you're delivering project management services. So the context within that space would be, I'm delivering project management services, even though you're existing in IT. So it becomes a far more capability-driven model than it does a functionally driven model. So once we develop all the attributes and the information that's stored within the complete model, we then provide some insight by putting an analytics or visualization tool over the top of the information that we've captured over the model. And from that, we ask questions of the model itself. By asking questions, we're going to get some insights from that information that we've captured. We can ask a whole variety of questions that'll flow up to that security vulnerabilities question that we'll be looking to ask. Kick that up a level, and we'll be aggregating that information from those models at the whole of government level. And when we start to aggregate at the whole of government level, we're going to see, we believe, some interesting patterns that will emerge that might trigger some work that DGov may look to do to try and arrest some issues that we're seeing that you couldn't see at an agency level, but you can see when you're looking across 5 to 10 to 15 and so on agencies. And that may chart a course of action which could benefit us all, or benefit the agencies. The approach around the information model, one of its strengths is this isn't a bespoke piece of work. So we don't come in and we're not just looking at the security vulnerabilities. That is one of the outcomes. But what you're going to end up with is a piece of enterprise IP. So you can take the business information model and you can use it for a whole range of services and discussions with the organisation. So we've done this a number of times for both government agencies and private organisations. And what we found is the nature of the conversation that we can have with non-IT folk, so decision makers, executive, operations, finance, because you're looking at a business information model, you're not necessarily looking at a solution architecture with technologies. They understand the information flows and the capabilities because it's more about how the organisation works. And so it changes the nature of the conversation that you can have with the business. So you can talk a security conversation with the business and map it against how the business information flows and model works. You can do the same transformative around cloud. You can do the same about applications rationalization. Whatever questions that you're looking to ask of the data that you capture, which is captured against the attributes that you put into your model, you can then have a different conversation with non-IT, and we found it to be really powerful. It's almost like the clouds get lifted from non-IT folk. So yes, to summarise, at the end of the exercise, we'll have captured all that information around the security vulnerabilities in the applications. We'll have rolled that up to whole of government level, but then you'll also get that piece of IP that you can use going forward.
Excellent. Ian, and on this slide, I'm just going to actually talk about the delivery model of the project. So on the slide, you can see that we have a governance function at the center of the three streams that we'll be offering as the services available under Fortify. And that governance function is going to make sure that all projects are actually basically keeping on track. And there will be that function of aggregating all the information that we're getting from all agencies into DGov and reporting periodically to DGov on projects kicked off, projects completed, project stalled, maybe, hopefully not, for whatsoever reason, so we can support all agencies at the level required. So outside that governance function, each stream will have a project management allocated to the stream, and those packages will be delivered at the agency level. So similar to as Ian mentioned before, these engagements are not too bespoke, but they take into consideration the individual agency's environment to make sure that we're getting the best outcome out of the engagement. So there's obviously at the outer circle, if you like, the continual improvement, and that will be mostly around the remediation recommendations, be it across the Essential 8 compliance stream or the legacy systems risk assessment streams. And from there, we can continue the conversation on how do we, now we know what the problem is, how do we address the problem, how do we fix it? Finally, the engagement summary. So what are you getting basically from these three streams? So looking at the Essential 8 MIL1 compliance, we're looking at the engagement depending on the size and complexity of the environment of the agency between 5 and 12 days. The engagement is, the value that you're getting is to the tune of 17 grand. The SOC acceleration is a very automated process that will be running. So regardless of the environment, complexity, size, etc., the value that we're getting, it's costed at 17 grand, and the engagement time is about 4 to 8 days. That is lapsed, not effort. And what you'll be getting across those two streams is understanding the current state from the Essential 8 MIL1 compliance, is understanding the current state, getting that standard approach applied to the agency, and you get recommendations for remediating those issues that we will uncover. From a SOC acceleration perspective, you will ensure that if you're using Sentinel, that Sentinel is actually built in accordance to DGov configuration and requirements guide, and all the connectors are in place. Basically the environment is optimized, is architected well, is right sized. Will help you also avoid cost blowouts. We know that's a very present concern talking to most agencies. So we will have all the guardrails, if you like, to make sure that the likelihood of that happening is minimized. From a legacy systems risk assessment, the engagement is obviously a little bit more comprehensive than the first two streams. We're talking about 5 to 8 weeks. The value is between 25 to 45k, and what you get is that identified portion in the NIST framework, or the adapted framework that DGov basically utilize to identify those systems, to understand the risk exposure out of those systems, and there will be recommendations for remediations. But the utility of the last stream is really enormous. So to Ian's point earlier, it's really, once you have all the data sets built, the business model, the information, the BIM business information model built, you can ask it any questions relating to any future improvements, and you can get a different answer. As previously covered by Peter as well, the funds accrued to date amount to around 1.8 million. Now, it was raised before that, this is not probably too much money, but looking at the packages that we've built, this is enough to service around 25 agencies. So understanding that DGov's priority is to service agencies who don't necessarily have the available resources or funding to support these outcomes. This is going to be all available to agencies who are willing to engage first, really. So, and the funding will be topped up every year, and and it's a function of the overall Microsoft spend, basically. So this is not all the money, but this is the money we have to date, and it's plenty of money, I guess.
I think just a point on the engagement, and I guess an ask to the audience today is that we're bringing a lot to the table here to help you accelerate. What I would just ask in return is just a commitment on resource to help us deliver this. So that's going to be really important. We can't just come in and do all the work. You're going to need to bring to the table some help and some resource to accelerate. So that's the only point on that.
So, and finally, how does the engagement process go? I would encourage everyone on the call who find this interesting or relevant to the agency is to contact your Data3 licensing account manager. And then the engagement itself goes through the normal project process. So we will build a statement of work. You would accept that statement of work to make sure that basically everything is as required. And then the funding approval will be done by Department of Finance, after which we can kick off the project. And upon completion, the agency would acknowledge completion according to the statement of work, and that acknowledgement will be shared by DGov and DOF, and the engagement will be closed.